Phil, do you want a custom 2020 plan? Yeah? No? Okay. He's not interested. Or maybe he is. Between today and January 15th, 2020, I'm giving away free consultation calls to help people create a custom 2020 New Year plan to help them build their dream businesses in this new year, in this new decade. This video that I'm about to cut to right now is with Marc of Echelon Media. Marc was very successful in the past, and he's taken a few steps back in his life and has found himself at a job that is barely paying rent, and he's really not enjoying it all. So we customize his 2020 plan so that he can get on his feet and build his dream business in 2020. I hope you guys find value in this. And if you have any interest in getting a free consultation with me, just feel free to DM me or email me at this email right there. Enjoy the interview. Just give me the rundown, man. Where are you at right now and where do you want to be?
Sure. That's a huge question, but yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Long story short, it's been a challenging 2 years, kind of getting over separations and having a new kid and all that stuff. And I was originally at a place where I was doing very well for myself financially, and I thought I was ready to springboard into something bigger. And so I created basically two things that I wanted to leverage moving into the future that I wanted to eventually turn into businesses. But since all of the things that happened in the last 2 years, I've had to take a huge step back, not to like zero, but basically I've had to scrap a lot of things, and I'm working a job that it was just a job. It's not exactly the thing I want to do. It kind of covers my monthly expenses, barely. There are some months that are super tight. And honestly, I'd like to move forward into the new year doing the thing that I want to do. I'm just nervous about going in the right direction because I have two big things I could potentially take advantage of that would be very beneficial, and two things that would actually be enjoyable and in the right place for me. I just have to always make sure that whatever it is that I do, I make money. So I can either go into personal training, which I absolutely love, because it goes and plays into the mission that I want, which is to empower people. Or I could also go into the content marketing or content creation space, which also does the same thing because it allows people to elevate their story, which is the slogan of what Echelon Media is. And so I'm kind of at this weird place where whatever it is that I decide to do, I need to make money. I'm just tired of, doing my grind, which is like a standard job. And I need to make sure that whatever direction I go in, it's, I guess you could say, the safest option.
Right. Yeah. You have a child, you have, someone to take care of other than yourself.
Yeah. So
you don't want to be in a position where you're, taking a leap for yourself and then putting yourself in jeopardy and your daughter as well. So yeah. I totally get that. So just to recap, what I am hearing is that you have a job right now that barely pays the bills. Some months it does, some months it doesn't. Mm-hmm. You used to be in a position where you were doing so well, and now that has, for one reason or another, been taken away from you. And now you want to enter the new year doing something really meaningful, doing your purpose, doing your calling, whatever it is, something that you really enjoy, where you're adding tons of value to the world, and obviously preferring to have an abundance of money coming in from doing that too. But you don't want to make the leap and fall through the crevasse. And you basically end up being a starving artist and being broke doing what you love.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to look at it, is calling it like a starving artist, because I don't want this to be one of those things where it's just like, I want to follow my passion, so to speak, but I just don't have the room to make that sort of a mistake, because major detail, I do have a daughter to take care of, and I don't want to feel like I'm being this like entitled artist who needs to follow their bliss at the expense of my kid. Like, I want to make sure that whatever direction I go in is the right direction.
That's really powerful. So what I'd like to do is kind of bounce some ideas back and forth with you. I don't have all the answers. I'm not claiming that I know exactly what you should be doing, but within the framework of what I teach as an agent and helping people get their careers funded, their dream businesses funded, I'll just give you some ideas from that framework, and then we can bounce ideas off and maybe come up with somewhat of a solution for you.
Yeah. And that's just to clarify on that note too. Like I'm at this place because I am scared and nervous about trying to come up with my own path. But really, that's part of the reason why I'm reaching out to you, is that I've just realized that I don't know the answers either. But at the very least, I can see that you've had a track record of creating this success. And honestly, I was surprised when you told me the full extent and the details of your story. And that's why I just it made sense to have this conversation with you.
Totally. Yeah. I've been homeless. I've struggled. I've dealt with all kinds of really horrible stuff, really dark stuff, and have been super, super blessed to be able to survive through that and come out. And, there's always room for improvement, but thanks for mentioning that for sure. So what I'd like to do is just walk you through the process. So basically what I think is important for people who are willing to keep their job and move forward from there versus the people who are not is a little bit different. So are you in a place right now where you're cool with keeping your job and moving forward, or do you want to leave that job?
I'd like to leave this job because it just doesn't make enough, and move into something that's a lot more lucrative. And I do have an option to do that.
Great. Okay, cool. So, and how many days a week are you at your job?
4 right now.
4 days. Okay. So the first thing, which is optional, that is in my framework is joining the 3-day-a-week club. And the 3-day-a-week club is a fancy way of saying finding a job where you work 3 days a week and it pays all your bills guaranteed every single month, no questions asked, right? So your job right now, 4 days a week, that could have worked if you were always guaranteed to get that same amount of money in your bank account every single month, so you didn't have to worry about it. Because then you'd have 3 free days a week to do whatever you want without worries whatsoever. But it sounds like you're still worrying about this position. So one option is you join the 3-day-a-week club, which is spend the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, not focusing on your passion, not focusing on your business, not focusing on, what you want to do next. Just put your head down and find that job where you're working 3 days a week and it's paying 100% of your bills guaranteed no matter what. And so that would look like, say it's January 1st. You circle a date on the calendar. By March 1st, I'm going to have that 3-day-a-week job. And so what you do is you go out, you don't focus on anything else. Maybe, nights when you're done, job searching and everything like that, that's fine. You can focus on your plan, your ideas and brainstorming and dreaming up stuff, but really just want to take care of yourself, get your exercises in, your whatever it is that you do to focus on self-care. But then always just every single moment that you're not at work, you're finding that job. And for me, that was Uber and Lyft. And just be aware of, a lot of people that I work with, and including myself, because I've put myself through this process. You every time that you create an excuse as to why it can't happen, ask yourself questions of what needs to happen to remove that barrier, right? So you might say, I'd love to do Uber and Lyft, but my car is over 10 years old and they won't allow my car. Well, did they offer a car? Okay, did they not offer a car? Could you possibly figure out a way to get a car? Could you talk to people and borrow some money, see if you can, maybe someone will buy a car, it'll be their car, but they'll let you use it, and you pay them a percentage. There's always a way to go around it. And so just always remember that as you're looking for that job for that 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, focusing on nothing else except for finding that 3-day-a-week job. Just remember that, look for the solutions that feel right and that seem safe and secure and comfortable. And then if there's any blocks holding you back from actually deciding to move forward and take action on that thing, just do what you have to do to remove those blocks in your mind. So that would be the first step. And I'm just going to go through the process. But before I do, I want to stop there and ask you how you feel about that one step. You start off beginning of the year and you focus on nothing except for finding that super secure job so that you have 4 days a week, once you get it, to focus on your thing.
Yeah. Right off the bat, my initial feeling is, on the one hand, like, I'm trusting you because you've seen the process, but on the other hand, there's definitely that feeling of like, well, I don't want to abandon my mission. And I know 1 or 2 months isn't that much of time to focus 100% of my energy into that 3-day-a-week club, but at the same time, it's like I'm counting on trusting the process and also considering that, like, if I do have something that's just consistent over the next 2 or 3 months, then it does make it easier for me to just to be able to make time for whatever it is that I decide to actually move forward into. Right now, you said you did Uber and Lyft, and that's nothing anywhere near what you actually want to do with your life. And I guess for me, the biggest option I have is to leverage my nursing degree, which is kind of in the same space as fitness and health. I just, I've been putting it off for like over 5 years. And so I'm just nervous about going into it, but it'll definitely get me in the place where I can work either 3 or 4 days out of the week and make more, at least, if not more than what I need to pay the bills.
Yeah. And that's awesome. An additional thing to consider, is exactly what you said, leveraging an existing skill set, because you can probably get paid more money doing that than something that you have no skills in, whatever, or that is an entry-level position. And so what I did is I was doing Uber and Lyft because it was the most accessible and easy thing that I could immediately jump on. But then I ended up finding an opportunity because I was in the music industry for over a decade, and I ended up joining the 3-day-a-week club in another area, working for one of my favorite authors, producing a #1 podcast. And so I still worked 3 days a week, but I started getting paid even more and more and more money doing that as I was working on getting my funding, getting my grant. So that's a great idea. I think that's really smart for you to leverage your nursing degree. And as long as you can actually go into a place, now that the challenge doesn't become, finding the career or the path that you want to take. Now it's finding the company that will hire you under your terms. And I call those your preferences and your non-negotiables. So what are your non-negotiables? One of your non-negotiables is I cannot work more than 3 days a week right now. And you can give them whatever reasons it is. You can say, hey, I'm applying for this position, but I want you to know that I only have 3 days a week, or I only have 3.5 days a week, whatever that is for you, so that you're in a position where you're protecting your time so that you can move forward and do what you're really supposed to be doing, because this is only a lily pad, it's a stepping stone for you to get to where you want to get. And if you're taking your non-negotiables and you're lowering your standards in that way, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And we want to get you in a position where you're empowered and you have financial freedom and time freedom to be able to do what you want to do. And I want to also say one thing about feeling nervous about taking a step back and not focusing on your passion. You're always going to focus on your thing because you're passionate about it, right? It's what you think about in the morning. It's what you think about at night. Every waking moment, that's what you're thinking about is, fitness and your media company. And so that's always going to be there, but see it like you're going out of your way to do something for your baby, right? Not your child, but your other baby, your career, your mission, what you're supposed to be doing. It's like you're spending that time to secure security for your mission. And it's like, I need to step away for a moment and get secure so that I can support my mission correctly. And if you don't do that, then it's like, trying to raise a kid with no job. It's like, oh, I'm trying to be here for you every day. I'm trying to, be here and focus on you every day, but I'm not making money. It's like, instead, what you would do with your actual child is you would go out and you would get a very secure financial, income, financial situation. And then you would take care of your child. You would maybe get babysitting for your kid while you focus on getting that secure job. So the same thing should go for your business. Is it's like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find something secure so I can support you, business. And then I will focus on you. And I feel like that's really crucial because I don't, want you in a position where the old way that people used to do it is it's like, you have an idea. As soon as you have an idea, your job is to struggle for 1, 2, 3 years trying to figure it out. And maybe after 1 or 2 or 3 years, you end up making enough money to make it survive, but probably not because you're focusing 5 days a week on earning a living. You're doing it on nights and weekends. You don't have enough time. You're tired. You're struggling. You're trying to make it happen and it's just not working. So we need to build a lifestyle where you have 4 to 7 days a week to focus on your thing and you're getting paid to do it. So step one for you may be joining that 3-day week club. Then when you have that 4-day open time to focus fully on your thing, then you focus that time on getting funding. And the cool thing about getting funding is it's not like, okay, put off your passion, find a job. Then once you found the job, put off your passion again and get funding. No, it's not like that because the process of getting funding is actually planning out your dream business. And so what you do is you create a little napkin plan, right? One thing that you've told me is that one of your best case scenarios, so you would be a content creator and a fitness trainer for an influencer. That's one of your best case scenarios.
Yeah, it'd be like maybe like Jordan Syatt with Gary Vee in a way.
Cool, awesome. So Jordan Syatt is a personal trainer and he works with the influencer Gary Vaynerchuk. And you want to do something like that.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. So if that's what you wanted to do, say, it's January 1st, you decide I'm going to spend 3 months finding that 3-day a week job. March 1st, by then or sooner, you find that 3-day week job. Now you have super solid income. You're getting a paycheck every month, feels good. You have 4 whole days every single week to focus on your thing. Right? So now you're like, cool, 4 days a week, sit down at your desk and you write out your napkin plan. Your napkin plan is just you fantasizing about your best case scenario, just like all the things you'd want to do, what you're skilled at, what you'd love to do. You come up with this whole thing, right? It might be exactly what we just talked about, being a content creator and a personal trainer for an influencer. Or it might not be. You might realize, there's something else that I really want to do that's deeper inside me that would really be that thing. And whatever it is, you get really clear on what it is, you fantasize about it, and then you write it on a napkin plan and say, this is what I want to do. Then you make it into a little bit of a bigger plan by turning it into a 1-page plan. And the whole focus of the 1-page plan is for you to be able to stick that on your wall or frame it and put it on your desk or just have it and look at it. And when you look at it, you say, I don't know how I'm going to get here, but if there's any way in the world that I can make that piece of paper turn into my real life, I'll be the happiest person in the world. Right? You following?
Yeah.
So you have this piece of paper and you're like, that is the life I want. I don't know how I'm going to get it. I don't know how hard it's going to be. I don't even know if it's possible, but that is what I want with my life. And you see that every day and you're like, that feels right. So from there, you take that 1-page plan and you start to build out a presentation that you're going to present to get funding. But the cool thing is that presentation to get funding also doubles as your plan of action to actually find that influencer or whatever that thing is that you want to do. And so you have this tool once you've created the presentation to get funding, where you have, so to speak, a tool in your backpack for whenever you show up at a meeting and say, hey, here's my super amazing plan of how I'm going to make this happen. Check it out. People can see it and say, yes, I want to help you get funding for this. The whole goal of that is for you to sit down with with people who offer grants, with people who offer investments. It could even be crowdfunding stuff, whatever it is. And you plop that in front of them and say, I need 1 to 3 years of my personal expenses paid for, my rent or mortgage bills, gas, food, groceries, whatever it is. And 1 to 3 years of my business expenses, hiring people, being able to travel, to go to networking events, to pay to get into things, to buy gear, to buy equipment. And from my experience, like I'm telling you, it's easier to get funding than it is to find a new job. Like, it's not super easy to get a great job. You might be able to get a job at like McDonald's, but to get a job that you actually want to be doing, that you get paid the money that you want, and to actually be working the hours you want, and under the preferences that you have of what you want to do for work, it's going to be a little bit more challenging probably to find a job than it is to get funding. It's just people don't want to focus on funding because we haven't been conditioned to do that. We've been conditioned to struggle the whole process through and try to build a business on the side while we're spending our entire 71% of our lives, 5 days a week, trading our time for money for someone else's dream.
It's scary. Like, I honestly, when you said that, like funding 1 to 3 years of my living expenses and business expenses and buying equipment, and like, it almost requires a certain level of entitlement. And I honestly felt a gap when you said all that. Like, I don't know if I deserve to or am entitled to any of that. Having a plan to present to people helps to clarify that, because I always have this notion in my head, because I've worked with businesses, so I have this notion in my head that, like, how do I justify the ROI on that? But overall, like, I do have this like anxiety over whether or not someone's going to be like, oh yeah, here you go, here's like $50,000 a year for you to be able to pursue your dreams. Like, it's yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, man, because the thing is, if you feel like you don't deserve it, then that's not really even important. You don't have to feel you deserve it. The thing is connecting in with what you're doing, a bigger mission. And that's why I focus on people who have what I call heart-centered businesses, which, however you want to cut that. It's just, the idea is you're doing something that's bigger than you. Right. And so if people are like, I want to be this big influencer on the internet, I want to be famous, I'm going to be great, I'm going to be amazing, that can work. But as soon as you run into that uncertainty of like, do I deserve this? Who's going to give me the money? Who's going to believe in me? I don't even believe in myself. Whatever the situation is, if you can tap into the real thing that you're doing, what are you impacting? What difference are you making? For instance, I put out a video called How I Dealt with Sexual Assault. And I had a teenage girl comment on the YouTube video saying, hey, I was raped and molested when I was 12 or 11. And I watched this video and I called the 800 hotline that you recommend. And now I feel less, like suicidal or whatever it was. And that, I always pull on that.
Yeah.
When I think about what I'm doing, if I ever feel a lack of, certainty about what I'm doing, if I feel like an imposter, having imposter syndrome, whatever it is, it's like the process works. And we get in our own way by not believing in ourselves, but we don't have to believe in ourselves. We just have to care about something more important than us.
Yeah.
Some people, we totally believe in themselves and they don't need that. They don't need to leverage that higher calling. But for those of us who are like, well, I don't know if I deserve that, then tapping into what impact you're really making. Like if you're working for a big influencer with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, and you are training them, all of those people are seeing that person go from unhealthy and successful to healthy and successful. And then that person is pointing at you and saying, this person made me healthy in the process of my success.
Yeah.
And now you're having all those people, all those fans and followers of that person are considering getting in shape. That's just one piece of it.
That's actually a huge mental shift. I really hadn't even thought about it that way. I have my own examples of people that I've helped in the past that make me feel nice, like I'm on my mission, but I've never fully used that to detach myself from, actually it's a kind of a selfish thing of like not deserving or being entitled to funding, for example. But really it's not about the funding so much as it is the impact. Like that's actually a really cool shift because it gets away from the sort of more let's say, esoteric or up in the clouds idea that like, oh, do I deserve this, to obviously I'm making an impact. I can measure my success based on the number of people I'm actually helping. Like, I like that perspective a lot better, and I can measure that. And it doesn't have anything to do with deserving anything for myself, because thanks for that. That's actually a big shift.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Take the people that you've helped already in your mind and just, imagine those people multiplying and multiplying and multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And those are so many different individual lives that you're making a difference in. And if you can leverage that in the process while you're seeking funding, or while you're seeking, joining the 3-day-a-week club or whatever it is, just keep that in your mind. And, if not that, focusing on being a role model for your daughter and, whoever it is, just, ask yourself who is it that I have to be here for, and who I have to be, show up for and be a good example to. Like, there have been times, where in your journey where you've been an example to me. And so I've seen you, whether from afar through your content or by conversations, where I've seen what you're doing, and it's caused me to take certain actions. So if you've done any of that before, or even if you haven't, just visualizing what's possible, the computer that people watching this are staring at one point that was a thought in somebody's mind that they may have not thought was possible. When I was going to get funding, I didn't know if it was possible. When I was going to get, my dream job, I didn't know if it was possible. I never thought any of this stuff was possible, and slowly but surely it started coming into fruition. And if you can do the work necessary to get to the point where the next obvious step is the thing you want, then it'll happen, right? But you got to get to that point. You got to walk up to the door before, it's realistic that you can open the door. So I'm really glad that resonates with you, Marc. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of recap everything that we've said so far. So you're in a position where you have a job that you're not really happy with, and it's not paying you enough money. Some months it's paying you enough. Other months you're barely scraping by. So that sucks. So you want to leave that job. And, coming into a new year, you want to be doing something really meaningful and not just be scrambling around. So we talked about getting you in a position where you're working 3 days a week, doing something that pays all your bills no matter what. You never have to worry about money. It might not be, a total abundance, a surplus of money, but at least you're in a position where you don't have to worry about your bills, and you get 4 whole days every week to focus on your thing. All right. Then from there, we talked about spending those 4 days creating a vision of what your best career would look like. And then taking that, turning it in from a napkin plan to a 1-page plan that you can point at and be like, if somehow I can make that, what's on that page happen, I'll be the happiest person in the world. And then we kind of talked about some of the blocks. Like you take that plan, you turn it into a presentation, you go to get funding, whether that's a grant, an investor, anything like that. And you present that to get money to pay for your personal expenses, like your rent, your bills, your gas, your food, your groceries, and also your business expenses, like the gear you might need if you need to hire people, pay people to make things happen, so that you can build your thing and have a 1 to 3 year runway to be paid every single month without worrying about it, and transition into doing that full time. So at that point, just so you know, when you get the grant money, you can quit the 3-day-a-week job and focus 7 days a week on doing what you love. And that's great. And it sounds amazing, but there's a million reasons why people are like, I don't want to do that. I would love to do that, but realistically, in my actual real life, that scares me. Or, I don't want to take a leap. And that's why I think this is so important, because there is no leap involved in this, right? You have your current job. Don't quit your current job. Just spend all your time not at work finding that other job. Once you have the 3-day-a-week job, quit your job. And for some people, they won't even need to do that because their job right now is fine. But for you, you don't want that job anymore.
No.
Have that 3-day-a-week job. You have 4 whole days. You've created a buffer, a space of time that you can focus on getting funding and create your whole plan, your whole business plan. So you're fully engaged, fully immersed in planning out what your business is. So even if you were to not get funding, you're still spending those 4 days a week fully planning out your entire action plan for your business. And then from there, once, you bring that to get funding. And once you get funding, which, I'm happy to coach you through the entire process of getting funding at a different time.
Yeah.
But once you get funding, then you quit. You let go of your 3-day-a-week job and focus 7 days a week on your business. And then from there, you have 3 years to figure out how to make that work, a 3-year runway to make the business profitable.
Yeah.
Right. But you said, one example of reasons why theoretically this sounds great, but people, in their real actual lives aren't willing to do it, is because, like what you said, I don't even know if I'm worth, I don't even know if I can get that. I don't know if I can make that happen. Do I deserve that?
Yeah.
And we talked about how, focus on the mission and what you're doing, so that you're not doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for other people. And that can kind of change the perspective and give you more drive and more focus, whether that's people that you know and love, like your child or your family or whatever, or, visualizing all the people that you'll help out there in the world. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that's like really coming up, like in real life? Are you going to get off this phone call and decide to do that? Or is there something where you're like, I don't know?
Honestly, I'm ready to do it. And the thing that gives me the most faith or confidence in it is just having the structure. Like I hadn't really conceptualized these things in these blocks. So rather than thinking, oh, if I let go of my passions for 2 or 3 months, then I'll never be able to come back to it. And that's my biggest fear, starting off. The next, I would say, potential hurdle would be going into funding, but I like the way that you presented it by saying that so long as there's people that I'm helping, I always try to think of it from the perspective of a business. And so in this case, the business would be someone who's funding me. So whether that's like some sort of like an investor or a capitalist or whoever, and I do have that potential resource to tap into, is how can I justify them giving me money to do it? And it's easier for me to say, hey, let's say, rather than the people that I'm helping, we look at it in business terms. I have these amount of customers, it's producing this much. I know that I can execute this amount every month to get this much of a return, and I can justify that. Because it is harder to just say, oh, well, I have this great idea and you should give me all this money because it'll be great. That kind of vague place is what gives me the most nervousness about getting funding, but having had this conversation,
paying people back.
Yeah, it's about paying people back for this like great idea of mine, because I don't think anyone wants to be indebted to anyone, but if it's something that can create a positive return and be fulfilling at the same time because you can track and measure your progress, then it's easier for me to justify getting the funding. And I would love to be able to get funding to, like you said, like for the next 3 months to be able to develop a real business, as opposed to just being like, oh, this is gonna be some great job that's gonna like take off, or this great idea that's going to take off in the next 6 months. Like that's more ridiculous to me.
Right. Well, just so you know, there are different types of funding, and I've helped people get everything from, investments. And with an investor, the way it works is, yes, you're showing somebody how they can make money from your thing. Mm-hmm. But just so you know, if you make $0, you pay them nothing. You only pay them a percentage of the money that you make. If you make 0, they get 0. If you make $1 million, they get a percentage of that million, right? Mm-hmm. And so that being said, there is no real risk other than you letting someone down. Yeah. Obviously, you're letting yourself down too. Yeah. But there's also grants, and there are so many grants. Like I said before, there are hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion plus every year of grants that go unclaimed. And so, for instance, for me, I get to spend $144,000 of somebody else's money, and I don't pay taxes on it, and I don't have to pay them back.
Are you serious?
And it's because I have a $12K grant that I take the initial installment of, I put it into advertising, and then I get that money back every month, and I spend that money every month. And so you're not having to pay that money back at all. Yeah. You just simply go in, they give you the money. There's a reason why they want the money. You can, it could be because of your ethnicity. It could be because you're stimulating the economy. It could be because you're, doing something meaningful and making a difference. Whatever it is, you're applying to these different grants, and you're getting money that you never have to pay back. They don't want you to pay it back. You don't have to pay taxes on it. And when you spend it, you get to write it off. So it's kind of like double dipping, but the only reason is because that's government money that the taxes already got paid for it from that middle company. Yeah. Right. So you don't have to go for a situation where you'll ever have to stress or worry about paying someone their money back.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly hadn't even thought about it in that way. That helps a ton. That really does help a lot.
So what would stop you right now from moving forward with that action plan?
I can't think of anything. And just as far as like what you said about if I run into a roadblock, how do I come up with solutions to overcome that? Like if I needed a vehicle to execute on a job, like how can I fix the vehicle situation to get? I have those pieces already in place, and right now it's just a matter of executing. As of right now, I'm in the process of signing on as working as a nurse, and I can definitely make the kind of money that would put me in a better place working 3, if not 4 days out of the week.
Yeah, do it, man. And in the process, just like think of your life as a finished book. The book's done. The book has been written. Imagine your book is finished to the last day of your life, and you're just reading. You haven't read the book yet. You're reading it right now. Mm-hmm. It's already done, right? And if you think of it that way, then as you're going through the process, it's like, what does my character in this book do? What does this amazing character that everyone wants to read about do that is, courageous, and that is, vulnerable, and that is outside of the box and willing to do whatever necessary to make it happen? What does this character do? Then you realize that you can take that and that story and apply it and make it your actual life. Because in real life, you might be like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. You know what? I'm just not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to just stay at my job and figure it out.
Yeah.
But then if you think of it from that perspective of that, of that character, that would be a boring book.
Yeah.
It'd be, not to be too harsh, but it would be the book of a failure,
Yeah.
And that's not you. And I know that. All right, Mark. So how are you feeling about this whole process?
I wish I could just be like, oh, I'm so ready, but it's a lot. I'm always glad to have you sort of clear the path for me. And that's really the biggest thing is I really do well when there's a structure and it's measurable and there's someone I could have a discussion with and say, hey, like, here's where you're going right, here's where you're going wrong. And I think that's the biggest thing in order for me to thrive because that's where coaching is important. And that's really it. Like, this is also the first time that I've really had someone break it down for me and saying that you're not giving up on your vision. You're not going to stop. You're actually just you're creating a time to be able to do something that's going to feed your baby. And taking a more focused perspective on taking, let's say, the next 3 months on doing something that's going to get me into the 3-day-a-week club or 4-day-a-week club, however I want to skin that, is a big shift in mentality.
Yeah. And thanks for being honest about that. The way I see it, man, is choose a system, choose a path, and stick to it. Because in my life and in a lot of my clients' lives and a lot of people that I talk to, like at speeches or whatever, is people are always telling me they try something and then they quit halfway through, and then they try something else and they quit halfway through. And for me, I lost my own confidence in myself and my own trust in myself. It's like, imagine you have a friend and they say they're going to do something, and then they no call, no show on you when you're supposed to meet up. And then they borrow money from you and they don't pay you back. And then they do all this stuff. It's like they're losing your trust in them, right? I lost my trust in myself because I was like, I'm going to start this thing. And then I quit halfway through. I'm going to start this thing and I quit halfway through. And so I had to gain my trust back by committing my life to one project and one project only. And so whatever that thing is, just choose a modality, choose a system, choose a process. And if you want to use my process, then do it and stick to it and trust the process because it's proven and it's worked. It's worked for so many people. But if you don't want to use it, then don't. But pick a different one.
Yeah.
And whatever that one is, like, just stick to it and trust the process. And it's the same, like in the same way that you want to pick the same career path and stick to that career path until you see it through. Choose a system or a strategy to see it through. And there are other ones out there. I'm not saying that mine is by any means the only one. My mission is to help people get there. So if someone else has a system that works or a process or a strategy that works, do it. And if I find out about it, I'm going to talk about it too and point to that person. Because, I have no agenda on making my thing the only way. Yeah. It's like, I just want people to succeed because my mission is to take people from, struggling and suffering to abundance so that they can, live an amazing life. So, yeah, man, just trust the process and let's keep connecting on a regular basis. That's why I'm trying to put out as much content as I can with people so that, people that are watching this that don't have a direct line to me can learn from this and, use my online course, but also have other, awareness of other people's struggles and situations so that they can see that they're not the only people. And I want to make this a normal way of going about building a career. I want it to be like, oh, if you want to start a business, then the first thing you do is you get funded. And then after you get funded, then you focus on your thing. Because I just don't want to I'm sick and tired of seeing people struggling and suffering. And, I was homeless. And it's because I didn't do this process. And instead, I just tried to struggle and suffer and try to make it happen while being super broke and a starving artist. And I just don't want anyone to have to deal with that anymore. So, I care about you, man. And whatever way you can find that, I want you to do it. But it just hurts me when I see my friends like trying and people who have amazing work ethic like you do, struggling in a way that's unnecessary. And, you've taught me a lot. And I think I'm, able to share my knowledge with you as well so that we can help each other, thrive so that at the end of our books of life, if you will, then we're both, we both have amazing stories that we're proud of.
Yeah. I can't say enough just how thankful I am that you went through your struggle at least enough to the point where you've come to realize what was a good working path. And honestly, because the elements of knowing you and liking you and trusting you are there, I'm going to commit my efforts in following the path that you've laid out because it's the one that I know and it's one that I can trust because we do have a connection. And I'm just past the point of being arrogant about thinking that I know the path because I'm good at my work ethic is really solid. And I can hammer away for a good period of time. I just don't have the time to just blindly work for work's sake. I'm definitely, I would say, just going to follow through with the path that you're laying
Awesome.
out.
Yeah. Work hard and work smart, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, awesome, Mark. Let's check in say 2 weeks and connect and see how it's going. And we'll just keep pushing, and I'll make sure that I'm there for you whenever you need to ask questions, and we'll just document the process and help each other and help other people too.
Cool. Awesome.
Awesome, bud. Yep. Thank you. Chat soon.
See ya.